What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Sorare scouting video here on the channel. Today we have got all the starting keepers next season for the Premier League competition, and I have been sort of scouting, looking around the competition. I will say before we get into the video today, of course I am recording this during the transfer window, so you know, transfer rumours and things like that could happen through the period of me making the video and uploading it. Yada yada yada, and that is what the comment section is of course about. So make sure you drop in the comments down below who you think is going to be starting for what team, especially, you know, when it comes to the transfer rumours and each club I'll be talking about in the video today. If you do enjoy, please do remember to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Let's get into the starting keepers for the Premier League this season. And just before we get into the video here today, I do want to say, if you guys are new to Sorare and you want to support a small creator, I do really appreciate if you use my link in the description down below to sign up to Sorare, because it helps me more than you can imagine, of course. And if you do become a member on the channel, I do really appreciate that as well. Let's get on with the video. Kicking the video off here today is Bournemouth, and they have let Kepa go back to his, original club, that is Chelsea, and it looks like they've actually brought in another Chelsea man, and that is Petrovic, and he should be the starting goalkeeper for Bournemouth this season. And I do think that Bournemouth are going to have quite a good season, so Petrovic should be a good one, probably quite expensive as well, because he is quite well known and things like that. So yeah, Petrovic starting goalkeeper for Bournemouth, good goalkeeper, good club, probably gonna, be quite expensive. Moving on to another expensive man, there's Arsenal's keeper, David Raya. Of course, no rumours to change or anything like that. Arsenal will be up there, and he'll be one of the most expensive goalkeepers in the league for sure. And then moving on to our first controversial club, and that is Aston Villa. And of course, they have Emi Martinez still from last season, and they have signed Marco Bizot, who is definitely capable of being a first-team goalkeeper. And there was heavy rumours that Emi Martinez was going to leave Aston Villa. However, recently, again, time of recording, he hasn't officially left. When the video is uploaded, he could have, but time of recording, he was linked with a move to Manchester United. He's been linked with there quite a lot, and I think Man United put a loan offer for him to Aston Villa, and Aston Villa said he is not for sale. So yeah, I don't know if that's part of the negotiation tactic here from Aston Villa. Maybe they are still looking to sell him, but they want good money for him. However, as time of recording, Emi Martinez should be the starting goalkeeper for Aston Villa. However, if he does leave, then like I said, Bizot should be the goalkeeper going forward. So yeah, this one's a bit up in the air, and of course when the video comes out, people might have a bit more of an understanding of what's happening at Villa, but of course we'll discuss in the comments down below. Moving on to Brentford, they have of course let Flecken go, and they've signed a keeper that should have probably been a starting keeper last season, and that is Kelleher. Of course, finally leaving Liverpool. Perhaps, yeah, he just felt. Yeah, well, I mean, he needs to get first team football realistically. He's still relatively young goalkeeper at 26, and I think he was holding out, maybe perhaps learning behind Becker for a bit too long. And I feel like, yeah, he probably should have got his move a bit earlier, but of course he's got his move now. Brentford, of course, they're losing a lot of good players, but Brentford is Brentford, and we always doubt them and think they're going to do bad, but they always prove us wrong. Of course, that was with Thomas Frank, so it'll be interesting to see how they do this season. But yeah, I mean, Brentford, I'll put it like this: I'll be very surprised if they do finish top half this season. So yeah, Kelleher perhaps not the most desirable one, so rare. And then the last one in this batch is going to be Bart Verbruggen. Nothing really to talk about here. Probably one of the best, probably the best under 23 goalkeeper in the world right now. And yeah, Brighton with their youth development always, bringing or allowing youngsters to get the game time and things like that. And I don't see any changes here for probably a good couple of years until maybe one of the bigger clubs come in for him. But yeah, even then it's going to be expensive. And for our next batch of goalkeepers, we're kicking things off at Burnley, and this is another great talking point or controversial one. And again, almost definitely going to be concluded when this video is uploaded. However, time of recording, James Trafford looks like he has got his move to Man City, so pretty sure he will not be in net for Burnley next season. And this is someone that, for those of you guys that watch a lot of my videos, will know I spoke about him in the under 23 goalkeeper starting video, and I said it's a risky one. He's probably going to move, but he's a good goalkeeper. I if he does go to City, which I'm assuming he has, yeah, he'll probably be an understudy to Ederson. But again, with that being said, Ederson seems like he's always linked with a move away from Man City. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I don't like, in my mind, I'm thinking Trafford probably won't start at City, and will be Ederson's. So yeah, obviously we'll get on City when we get there, but just wanted to mention that. And Burnley's backup goalkeeper, or the goalkeeper that they've recently brought in, is Max Weiss, and I don't know if he's Premier League capable, like Premier League ready or capable. You can see here he's been playing in Bundesliga 2, and he's a young German goalkeeper. He could get his opportunity at Burnley. However, Burnley are heavily linked with Ortega from Manchester City, and that is probably because, of course, they've just given Trafford to City, so maybe they're trying to sweeten up City to get one of their goalkeepers. Ortega, obviously, a very good goalkeeper in himself. So, yeah, I think time of recording, Burnley is up in the air, but I would have to say it's Max Weiss because that is the only capable goalkeeper they have at the club right now. However, like I said, when this video is out, they might have signed someone like Ortega or potentially someone they're not linked with yet. So yeah, there is Burnley, and let's discuss Burnley in the comments section down below. But even then, Burnley, of course, are going to probably struggle this season, so the goalkeeper might not be that desirable on Sorare. Moving on to Chelsea, and of course Robert Sanchez. They have about 47 goalkeepers they could choose from, and it looks like they're going to go with Robert Sanchez, and I think he's done pretty well at the Club World Cup and things like that. So yeah, of course they have some fantastic goalkeepers at Chelsea. So yeah, and some Chelsea fans are actually, yeah, it's a bit mad, but some Chelsea fans are even saying they need a new goalkeeper. But yeah, in my personal opinion, Jorgensen is one of my favourite keepers, and they don't use him. So hopefully, Chelsea will loan out some of their good goalkeepers, as we've seen Petrovic, of course, go. But now they've got Kepa, Jorgensen, and all that sort of stuff just laying around. Mike Penders, and so many great goalkeepers at Chelsea. Hopefully, they all get a move. And then yeah, now up next we have Dean Henderson. Of course, he'll be fighting for an opportunity to play for England, so he'll still be going strong. You know, he's still in with a shout, to be honest. Like, you know, I'm not saying that he's better than Pickford, but starting goalkeeper for Palace, of course, they won trophy last season. He's had a great season at Palace, and no doubt that he'll be the starting goalkeeper this season. And yeah, Palace are a good team, so I expect him to be one of them good purchases on Sorare, like probably relatively cheap and will do a good job. So yeah, Dean Henderson will definitely be up there as like one of my recommendations for this competition. Moving on to Pickford, again, he's probably going to be very expensive because he's just England #1, great goalkeeper. Even though he's playing for Everton, who usually they have obviously struggled in most recent history. However, he still gets insane scores. So imagine what happens when Everton, you know, kick it up a gear and they actually start playing well. He's gonna be flying, and he's a great goalkeeper, to be fair, Pickford. So yeah, nice and easy one for me that one this time out. And then last one in this little batch is Fulham, and that is going to be Leno, the goalkeeper. And I will say though, Fulham's goalkeeper situation is interesting. I think they only have, I could be wrong here, but time of recording, I think they actually only have one goalkeeper, which is Leno, at the club, which is quite funny. So I would assume they are going to sign another goalkeeper, but perhaps it'll be an understudy to Leno, because I think Leno's quite a good goalkeeper. I think Fulham fans probably want him to stay as the #1 because especially the start of the season, I remember he was doing pretty well. So yeah, another one. He's kind of similar to Henderson in the fact that I reckon he'll be a decent one to have on Sorare. And yeah, I'd probably, if it was me, I'd probably be the price of them well, the price will probably be similar. Of course, I'm recording this ahead of pricing being out. But I would say if you're thinking about buying a cheap goalkeeper in the Premier League competition, I would go with Leno or Henderson, depending on how well you think Fulham and Palace are going to do this season. In my personal opinion, Palace will do better than Fulham, so that's why I would favour Henderson over Leno. And in our next batch of teams is Leeds United, who have Meslier as time of recording, but I know that they really don't like him, even to the point where he did get benched on the back end of the season. And yeah, I think he's just a goalkeeper full of mistakes, so almost certainly they will be looking to replace him. And the man that is rumoured to be replacing him is Lucas Perri. Of course, again, I will reiterate, time of recording, he hasn't officially signed for Leeds. However, he is heavily linked, and even when the video comes out, he could already have signed for them. So, of course, I'm including it in the video today. I think Lucas Perri is a good goalkeeper for Leeds. However, again, I don't recommend purchasing him personally, and that is purely just based on the fact that I don't think Leeds are going to be defensively that good. I reckon they might be okay in the Premier League, like they might survive. I'm not saying I think they will, but they might. But even if they do survive, I see them conceding a lot of goals because that is kind of the way Leeds are playing, especially in the step up to the Premier League as well. So yeah, maybe not a desirable one to have on Sorare, and probably prices will reflect in that. Moving on to Liverpool, of course, don't need to speak about this one too much. They just won the league. Alisson Becker, he is getting on a little bit, but he's just one of the best goalkeepers in the world. So yeah, not really much else to say there. And then moving on to Man City, and again, similar vibe to Becker, except this one's maybe a bit more juicier with the Trafford, entry. I just personally still believe it will be Ederson in goal and Trafford number 2. Again, I'm recording this ahead of time, so there's potential that Ederson moves by the time this video is released, but I don't see it happening. I personally reckon he will probably move, but probably next season. I think they'll give Trafford a year to learn from Ederson, like a year to settle in, and then become the number 1 at City is probably what makes sense. But yeah, that's my thought process anyway. And then moving on to Manchester United, and again, as of recording, it is Onana who is their goalkeeper, so that is why he is here. However, again, one that they definitely want to replace. And they have, as I mentioned earlier in the video, they're heavily linked with Emi Martinez. However, yeah, I don't know if maybe it's a negotiation strategy from Villa saying he's not for sale. Maybe they want Man U to bid, more for him. Who knows? But yeah, all we do know is Onana is number 1 as things stand. However, if they sign a new goalkeeper, it's very, very, very likely that the new goalkeeper will be the number 1. So yeah, if you're watching this video and they have signed a goalkeeper, it's probably that guy. Moving on to Newcastle, and Pope should be number 1. However, he does love an injury, so if you are going to buy a Pope, I highly recommend buying a Dubravka, because Pope does like I said, loves an injury. Also, Dubravka isn't that far off Pope's level, to be honest with you. So yeah, my recommendation for this one is if you're buying Pope, definitely buy Dubravka. Buy them, see them as a package. Of course, Newcastle, you'll have loads of utility with both cards because Newcastle have Champions League football this year, so you've got midweek and stuff like that with them. And Pope is a good goalkeeper, don't get me wrong, but definitely a position where Newcastle fans feel like they could improve. Hence the links with Trafford and things like that. But obviously, it didn't go through. They didn't sign Trafford, and an interesting one from a Newcastle perspective. Personally, I don't mind Pope, but I know that a lot of Geordies and a lot of Newcastle fans definitely don't like him and think he needs to be improved. So, yeah, Pope's an interesting one. Definitely, if you're going to purchase him, bear that in mind that he likes to get injured and he's likely not going to be the number 1 for a long period of time unless he really does start to prove himself this season. Look, if he goes ahead and makes some, has some insane Champions League performances and things like that, the Newcastle fans will love him again. So yeah, we'll wait to see what happens with Newcastle. But as things stand, Nick Pope is number 1. Yes, guys, so whilst making this video, It looks like Ramsdale is actually going to be going to Newcastle. Of course, we did talk a little bit about Ramsdale and where he might end up. Of course, linked with a few other clubs, as I stated in the video here. But yeah, looks like he has gone to Newcastle, and I don't anticipate that he will start immediately, at least. I feel like Pope will definitely be the starting keeper at the start of the season. However, you know, there is Champions League and stuff like that going on, so I don't doubt that he will get his opportunity. Maybe it's in the FA Cup, Carabao Cup, stuff like that, and he'll probably be fighting for a spot with Pope. But just in my opinion, Pope is a better goalkeeper. Of course, we'll wait to see what happens in this one. And to be honest, I do think it's a bit of a 50-50 because it doesn't really make much sense for Newcastle to sign a keeper to then just put him on the bench. So, especially with, as you can see here, a big loan fee included. So, there is definitely potential it could be Ramsdale. However, I am still putting my money on it being Nick Pope, unless Pope finds a move. And the final batch of teams we have in the Premier League this season is Nottingham Forest. Matz Sels, probably one of the best, or he's definitely in contention of team of the season this year. Matz Sels. So yeah, not much to talk about here. Going to be the starting goalkeeper for Nottingham Forest. However, personally, I don't think Forest are going to have the best of seasons this season. Just as like a natural, I don't know what the right word is, but I feel like their expectations now are going to be too high. They'll end up probably sacking Nuno by, too early. They'll probably sack him at like Christmas or something ridiculous because he's not in the top half or something like that. That's just my wild prediction kind of thing, and I reckon, yeah, Nottingham Forest will probably not have fun if they sack him. So, yeah, let's wait and see what happens there. That's just my controversial take or whatever for the season. Up next, we have Sunderland, who their goalkeeper, of course, for this season was Patterson. However, they've been linked with multiple different goalkeepers, and again, by time of recording, this is their goalkeeper. However, when the video goes out, they could have signed a new player or a new goalkeeper. One of them they're heavily linked with is Aaron Ramsdale. I think Ramsdale is linked with Leeds as well. However, I think yeah, thinking from Ramsdale's perspective, to be fair, I don't actually know which club he would prefer to play for. It would, yeah, Sunderland or Leeds. I'm not sure, but either way, probably he would prefer Leeds. But if Leeds are linked with the other man, as we discussed in the video here today, then yeah. I do know I'm pretty sure Ramsdale is on a big contract at Southampton, or like a longer contract at Southampton, so I don't think Southampton have to sell him, but of course he'll want to be a Premier League goalkeeper, so yeah. However, Ramsdale does have a lot of relegations on his CV, and he might add another relegation to his CV if he goes to Sunderland, because although Sunderland have made a lot of signings this window, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I just think it's going to be so hard for the newly promoted teams to compete with the already established clubs in the Premier League. But let's wait and see what happens this season. Whoever they sign, I would say be careful buying Patterson if you're going to buy him, because he could easily get replaced by someone like Ramsdale, or someone in the even in the mid-season window they might buy someone, because they Sunderland look like they're trying to buy a lot of players, so maybe a goalkeeper is going to be one of them. And it looks like Sunderland have agreed a deal with NEC for Robin Roefs. Of course, again, in this video, I was talking about potentially there being a replacement for Sunderland's keeper, and it looks like it is going to be the man from NEC. Of course, we know a lot about this man from Sorare, of course, an under-23's Demons. So yeah, just another little update to throw in there. And on top of that, we do have Man City here informing that Ortega can leave now that Trafford has signed for Man City. Up next, we have Tottenham, Vicario. Not much to discuss. One of the best goalkeepers in the league, in my opinion. Obviously injured for a large part of last season. However, yeah, a phenomenal goalkeeper, and probably going to be priced quite, respectably. Probably going to be up there, priced at similar. I'm guessing he's going to be maybe the third or fourth most expensive goalkeepers in the league. And then moving on to West Ham, and as of recording, their goalkeeper is going to be Areola. However, I know they don't really rate him, although don't know. I thought he was an alright goalkeeper, but maybe I haven't watched enough. And I know that they are linked heavily with Hermansen, who of course had a fantastic season with Leicester last season. However, and he is a young goalkeeper. However, yeah, at the time of recording, he's not gone to West Ham. However, if he goes to West Ham and it's these two, I would heavily suggest Hermansen is the starting goalkeeper there out of the two. And yeah, I think Areola is a decent goalkeeper, but I really like Hermansen, and I know a lot of people. I think he's rated quite highly in the football space. So I think if Hermansen moves anywhere, then he probably will become the starting goalkeeper. And the last club in the Premier League is Wolverhampton, and yeah, again, time of recording, Jose Sa is their goalkeeper. Similar situation. A lot of these clubs are in a similar situation where their goalkeeper is their goalkeeper as of recording, but they're not. Maybe they're not liking him that much, if that makes sense. So they're trying to replace him, and it looks like they're trying to replace him with Mandas, who is Lazio keeper, and he looks pretty decent, to be fair. But yeah, again, he's going to be moving to the Premier League, where well, yeah, he'll be tested a lot at Wolves, because I think Wolves might struggle this season. So yeah, and I think Jose Sa was not a very fun goalkeeper to own this season. So if I was you guys looking for cheap options in the Premier League, I probably would stay away from Wolves, in my opinion. Yes, guys, so there are all of the clubs reviewed for the starting of the Premier League season. Of course, recording this in the transfer window, as of all of my videos are going to be recorded during the transfer window. So there's always going to be opportunities where people could leave, people could join. That's just the nature of the window. But I'm doing my best to scout and do things in the moment for you guys. I hope you guys did enjoy and appreciate the time that I did put in to make this video. If you did, then please do remember to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. We'll catch you guys in a future video. Peace.